Hello everybody, welcome to the last video of the series building a REST API with Phalcon version 6. In this video we're gonna concentrate on a little bit of refactoring to make our lives easier later on, and we're going to introduce the main functionality for companies in our API. And so far we've been looking at the user aspect of it, but now we're gonna also add the companies, and you're gonna be able to see how you can add new endpoints and additional areas of interest for our API users. So let's get started with our project. So the very first thing that we need to do is we need to figure out exactly whether we have any plural instances. I know we tried to make everything singular, and so when we had sanitizers, it became sanitizer, and so on and so forth. This is something that I did. It's entirely up to you how you want to address that issue for you. You could very well leave things as they are, but it's not really good for the person that will use the component or the application or whatever next time around to use either singular or plural. Uniformity really helps. So let's have a quick look at a couple of things here. So in our source, domain, and infrastructure, we have this data source here, right? And the data source has validation, user, and interface. Where's the mapper? And the mapper. Well, we have the user mapper here, right? Let's start with this one. We have the user mapper, and if you remember, it implements the mapper interface, and the mapper interface is located up here in the interface folder. Well, if we're going to add a companies one, then the companies will need a mapper, and according to this interface here, it does return a user here, which will not work for us. So what we can do is we can take this interface and move it into the mapper and rename it as mapper interface, and then have a company related interface just for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it here, and we're going to rename it as user mapper interface. And it's gonna do that. Yes. And user mapper is gonna rename it to user mapper. No, let's take that out. All right. Oh gosh. No, we're not gonna do it this way. Sometimes PHP Storm is not very good at refactoring. Sometimes, most of the times it is. So what I do here is I'm going to call this user mapper like that, and then I'm going to rename this, and these are all from the result cache. That's fine. And now in the user mapper here, it's trying to find that. Let's just try and find it in the project. Alright, 62 results. Here, and this one will be user mapper. And I'm pretty sure we have it somewhere here. Okay, and then we have the repository and those guys here. These are fine. The repository needs it. There we go. So that solves that issue. Well, clearly didn't solve this one. There you go. So we just moved this guy over here, and this again to separate the mapper interface because they are different. There is the notion of very thin, small interfaces that serve your needs instead of big, complex interfaces that will serve many needs. To this, I can tell you, it depends on the circumstance. You cannot just blindly go and follow either or. You have to figure out exactly what your application needs and then decide which approach to use. Alright, so we got the mapper done. Let's have a look. Sanitizer interface. That one, I guess we can just leave it there because it's kind of like a global, if that makes sense. Alright, what I also want to do is I want to move the interfaces from the enumerations all the way up there. And that will keep all the interfaces in one area, so to speak, you know, the common interface, if you like. So we have sanitizer here. Let's see. We have sanitizers enum interface. All right, this is one of the things that I was telling you about. It's plural versus singular. It's sanitizers enum. So we're going to change this to sanitizer enum. We're going to refactor this. Okay. Where is this? It's in the result cache. Okay. And now that it's a sanitizer enum interface, I'm going to move it into interfaces all the way up here. And hopefully all the references are being kept. Okay. Also, this validator enum interface, we're going to put it again also in the interface part. And we did something wrong. Okay, it's an extra use that came up. Alright, so these guys are done. Alright. The next thing that I want to do is I want to create another abstract class. We have the abstract value object here that does some work for us, but I also want to create, let me see, for starters, yes, these references have been, I want to create another one which is going to be the abstract input value object, which will help us with the input as it comes in. So if I clone this, I'm going to copy it for you already have the code, and I'm going to explain what it is. So abstract input value object. Alright, and let me copy this and paste it. Alright, so what we're doing here is, did I copy the wrong file? Yes, I did. There you go. This is the one. What we're doing here is we're setting things up, and as you can see, we have references to company and company types. That's going to come a little bit later, but the main thing here is we're having an abstract class that will work with our input object whenever it comes in from the user. And as a result, we have this from array, and it's highlighted because it hasn't been implemented yet. We don't have the class that will implement this. But what this does is it receives everything that you need, and then it makes it. Um, you can call it sanitization, you can call it filtering, so it's pretty much clears up all the variables that have been sent from the user. So we're going to use this guy a little bit later. Um, it's just for input DTOs. Okay. Let me see. Do we have the abstract value object? Yes, the abstract value object now changes. It's no longer this part here. It needs to change to only one thing, and that is this. We just need. Actually, let me copy the whole class. I mean, it makes it. Alright, so it changes to this. It's going to expose only the to array. And again, you're looking at company types here. We're coming down to that. We're going to do that a little bit later. So that this is the base class that we're going to use for any value object that we're going to have in our application. Okay. So most of the code that was here was moved here in the abstract input value object. As you can see, I mean, it even has this. I could, in theory, extend the abstract value object from this so that this code is not duplicated in this and that. It's fine. These are additional optimizations and refactoring that I'm going to leave you guys to do, depending on your needs and the application, the needs of your applications. Okay. Now let me quickly have a look here. This is done. I'm just checking my notes. Just bear with me a second. Alright, let's see the validation, abstract validator. Changed up here, yes, correct. ABS int. That's fine. Alright. So we got all these guys done. One additional thing I want to have a look here is the abstract repository. And you can see here we have the delete and delete by. Those are very easy to these are really easy to see that they can be reused by utilizing the ID field and table. So if I have a different repository, in our case what we're going to do, the company repository, this would work because we're going to set up the ID field and the table, and then this code works perfectly fine. But if we go to our user repository here, blah blah blah, find by email, okay, find by ID, that one returns a user, so we have to keep it here. Find one by, that's fine. But have a look at the insert and the update. The insert and the update resemble what the delete is in the other in the abstract repository. So they rely on the property table, and they also rely on the property table and property field. So what we could do is we could just grab them from here and just move them to the abstract class down here. And as such, now what we have is we have the update and insert functionality to additional repositories that we will have later on. It's not only for the user one. So the companies one will enjoy the same update and insert that we want, and all we have to do is just pass the columns with the data. So that's another small change that we have. We're missing a couple of things. Let me just copy these. Just bear with me. This doc blocks here. There we go. Again, company types will come a little bit later, so don't worry about that. Do we have anything else? We have delete by ID. The insert has the return here. There you go. And then that one also throws an exception here. There you go. So that one, the little squiggly warnings disappeared. On this one, it just complains that the argument types that does not match the declared. I cannot clearly put this as the array. I'm just using this as the PHP stan type to help us with the analysis. So now let's have a look at our DTOs up here. We have final read-only class user. What we're gonna do is we're gonna extend, actually, extends abstract. It's abstract value object. This one. And of course, all these are gonna become read-only, or shouldn't they? Yeah, they should. Because we had to take it out of there, we're gonna do a doc block just to make sure that everything is fine. We don't need this, and we don't need the get object vars because the code down here, this toArray, exists in the abstract class. So that's a minor optimization that we did. We moved the toArray to the parent class. Equally here, it's not going to be the abstract value object, it's going to be the abstract input value object. And it's a final user. These are read-onlys, yes. And we got to get rid of this guy here. So there you go. The toArray went to the other side. Minor things here. Final class implements that. We just gotta fix this. Actually, cut that and paste it there. And that one is done. User mapper interface is okay from what I can see. db user command. Alright, so what we're going to do here is I actually looked at the code, and this user, this input is used only once here in the mapper, and it doesn't serve any purpose really. We don't use it anywhere else. So I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to change the interface to only these two, the db and domain. I'll keep that. User repository, we've done that. The interface is fine. Let me go through it real quick. User sanitizer, it's fine, I guess. And the enumeration, we need to move the enumeration in here. Where is the user sanitizer enumeration? Alright, we're going to take it out of here and we're going to put it in here. And the reason I'm doing this is because when I was doing the the company, when I was adding the company, I had to go back and forth into different folders just to find where the configuration files are, and that made it very confusing even for me. So I'm moving everything um, in the same spot that you would expect them to be. So the auth components will be all in the auth instead of being in the auth and in the enums auth or whatever. So I'm moving that there, and in the auth, I guess we're gonna move this sanitizer up here. All right, and we're gonna do the same thing with the validators. So the user validator, we have validator trait. We're gonna deal with a trait in a minute. So we need the user insert enum to come up here, the user update enum to come here again, and the other two we're gonna move them into this one. So the auth login validator enum comes in here, and the auth token validator enum comes up there. So we can get rid of these two folders. Alright, moving along. Alright, two more things to do. Auth input needs to extend abstract input value object, and of course that is done. That is perfectly done because it does have the get the to array in it. So that's it there. This trait here, we're gonna change it. Where are we? We have this abstract validator, right? And this one, the validator update extends it, as well as the user validator extends it. And we have this trait that has this validate thing. Well, and this is wrong here. Well, we can just move the validate straight up to the abstract and get rid of the trait. It's neither here nor there what you want to use, so you could just keep the trait if you think that you're going to use this particular piece of code somewhere else, but I'm just moving it over there. Let me just copy this, and then we're going to get rid of the trait. Okay, abstract validator, validator update. We'll get rid of this guy. We're gonna come over here, get rid of this guy, and then we're gonna get rid of the validator trait. Yeah, that's the cache. That's fine. All right, so a little bit of code shrinking and all that. The next refactoring I want to do is with regards to the container and the container definitions. If we open this guy over here, I didn't notice it at the time, but then I thought about it and it was obvious. What we're doing here is we're assigning in this, it's a string enumeration, we're assigning to this element here the class, right? And we don't use this the value of this element anywhere. We're just using the element to check what the definition would be, and so on and so forth. As such, the value is pretty much not used. However, if you look at it, it's actually used. It's used here. So I could change that to this value. So the class name will become the auth command factory. And it makes it a little bit easier for us later on if we want to change, for whatever reason, this auth command factory to something else. We just change it up here. We don't have to worry about it later. And also this little change makes things a little bit easier for us further down the line, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So if we change all of these to this value, sanitizer, login validator, and auth token validator. Right? Oops, I did something wrong. Yep. So this class is 100. This enumeration is 189 lines long. All right, and it offers us some functionality, whatever. We have this get handler service. So let me copy this array here. Let's go and find it at the top. It is here, get handler service, and we're passing whatever handler we need to, right? And if you notice that the auth logout handler is this class, and at the top here the auth logout handler is this. So it's exactly the same thing. Now if we get rid of that and make it more verbose, right? Like that, and then take this guy and put it here, and then do the same thing with the one below, the refresh handler. Let me tap this. You're going to see the benefit of this here. We did mention that we're going to change the class name to this value, right? Because it will match the element. It will match this, and then it will be that, and then it will match this, and then it will be that, right? So if we change it to this value here and this value there, clearly PHP Storm now complains, says, hey, this is the same as this. So what we can do is we can go up here and put a comma, get rid of that guy and put a comma. So for these two options, just do that. And immediately this value is the one that controls the actual class that will be generated, but the dependencies that go in would be the same. And now if we go further down, this one is gone. If we go further down and get the service, the get service, we're going to do exactly the same thing. I'll do it in all three, and then we're going to see how we do it, just in case. So I'm going to paste this here, I'm going to paste this here, and I'm going to paste it here. Get this class out and put it here. Get this one and put it here, and then get this one and put it here. Excuse me. All right. Remember, we said we're gonna replace the class name with this value, because the refresh post up here does point to the auth refresh post service, this guy here. So we're going to do them in all three. And now you see we got more highlights saying that if you hover, it will tell you match arm is duplicate, right? So the auth login post, the auth logout post, and the auth refresh post are identical in terms of their definitions. So we can just get rid of this and then get rid of this, and all of a sudden all these three legs are being serviced by this guy, and using this value it will create the class that we need. So now all we have to do is just go all the way to the bottom and get rid of this extra class, and now our enumeration is 170 lines and the code has shrunk significantly, and we're handling everything that we need, right? So that's a good refactoring to do. Now, for the common definitions, we're going to do exactly the same thing. So it's just pretty much changing the class name to this class, this value, sorry. So if I take that, copy it there, and then I'm going to copy it here, here, here. All right. So what do we have here? All right, for starters, I went ahead and did this change to everything. So the command bus is fine. It points to this value. It will be the command bus class. The events manager, though, is not 100% okay, because here we have container events manager. So that's not correct, because this is not going to be a class, it's going to be just a name. If we go to this definition, you see it says events manager as a name. So we cannot do that. So for this one, we're just going to revert it, just leave it as is. Now for the other one, the env manager is just a class. Excellent. JSON responder is the same thing, so we're going to do the little trick here. I'm going to have those two mapped together. The JWT token up here is a class, as well as the token cache, blah blah, and registry, and the other three are just names, so they're variables. They're not class names. So what we can do is we can go back down here. We're going to revert the response, we're going to revert the router, and we're going to revert the request, because those are the ones we need. But the registry itself, it's a class of its own. If you look here, the registry points to the class name, so this one falls under this category. So we put it down there and we put a comma here. So all these three are being handled by this guy. All right. Let's go to the user definitions, and we're going to do pretty much the same thing here. We're going to need this value to the facade. These are all class names, so I can safely do this value everywhere. That, and that. Alright, so let me put this value over here and then copy it. This is the get service here. So for everything in here, we're going to have only one branch serving it, which is going to be that. So you see very quickly, all these four, they just have the facade injected. We see the user delete handler and get handler are the same, so all I have to do is just do this. And then we have the get service put post. We're just gonna make a tiny change here. We can inject this value. There we go. And then this value, this value, this value, and the validators, we have them somewhere down there. I'm going to do the same thing. Take this out, and we're gonna put it into the validator update. There we go. So using this value, we managed to shrink, so to speak, our code, because it's the same branch. It's the same code that's handled by two branches, and the distinguishing factor is that this value of the enumeration that removes methods from our enumeration. It makes it smaller and a lot easier for us to work with. One more thing that we need to address is how do we know what's happening if there is a PDO error. You might have picked it up in a previous episode, but let me put a refresher here. Let's say the user. Let's go to the handlers, and let's go to the post one, which does the insert. If you note here, if you look at this code, we're doing all we need to do here with the validation. We're doing the mapper. We're running pre-insert for certain checks, and then we're doing the insert. But if a PDOException hits, we're going to return a payload, cannot create database record, but the EX contains information that we might need, but we don't want to show it to the user. And therefore, all we want to do is just log it so that we can see it in the future. So if a user turns around and says, hey, I cannot update or create a database record, well, what's going on? So if I don't have something here, I will never know what really happened. Okay, so I could very well in this handler inject the logger component and then log it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a listener, and I'm going to use an event to do that work for me. And the reason I'm doing this is not because the implementation does have benefits, but it might be a little bit of an overkill for this. However, I want this application to be a showcase of what we can do and we cannot do, and that would allow you to either extend this this API to your needs, or scrap it or whatever. But it gives you actual options. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my infrastructure folder, and I'm going to create a folder called listeners. And in here, let me just copy one class. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. I'm going to create the DB error listener, right? And this DB error listener, let me just copy it over the actual code, right? And this DB error listener, what we're doing is we're accepting a logger interface or a logger in the constructor, and it has a public method called PDO error. And what it does is it receives the event. This is a Phalcon event, and also receives the handler. And what it does is it picks up the class, the handler class, the name of the class. Then it gets the data from the event, and then it logs the error, right? So how do we use this? We do have our listener, and we know what the listener would do. So how do we use this? How does this thing work at all? So the key is the events manager of Phalcon, right? As you see, the events manager has been registered. We have it here, but it's not in here. It's in the enumerations, and it's in the common enumeration. We have it here as the events manager. So what we're going to do is we're going to take it out of here, and we're going to move it to the container straight up. And of course, we're going to have to take it out of here too, because otherwise the enumeration will complain. So in the container, now that we have the events manager, just the word rather, we're going to create a new method where we're going to do everything that we need. So let's put it under the before the filter, actually, alphabetical events manager, and we're going to call the method this get service. Now the reason I did not use get events manager is because these are magic methods. That the get and the service name is a magic method for the Phalcon DI container to give you the service. So if you do DI container get logger, you're going to get the logger. It's the same as container pointer get logger, right? So that's why I'm putting the word service here, so that there's no clash rather. This is the connection filter. Let's put it down here. Get service events manager. And in this events manager service, what we need is the logger, of course, and where do I have it? There you go. We need the logger and the rest of the implementation. So it is going to be a true. It's going to be a shared. Let's see. So we have this one as our definition. So first things first, let's create an events manager. New events manager. Okay, so we did that. Let's do the enable priorities. All right, so now we're done with that definition completely. And here, what we need to do is we need to get the logger, create the listener, and then attach the listener to the events manager according to a particular event. All right, so let's go with this a little bit slowly so that you can understand how it works. So first things first, we need to get the logger because we're going to need it, right? Get shared, and it's going to be logger class. And this one will be a logger interface. All right, so we got our logger. Now we need to create our listener. It's this one down here, the DB error listener. And if you recall, it requires the logger. Perfect. Just to note, I could have dumped this in the DI container and it would have resolved everything on its own. The reason I'm doing it a little bit differently here is just to give you more options. Okay. Now, we have the listener, but we need to be able to attach it to a particular event. An event, if it's a custom one, it can be anything. It's a name, it's a string, and you can call it anywhere in your code. If it's a Phalcon based event, it attaches to the particular component. So for instance, the DB one attaches to the database ones, the micro attaches to the micro element, and so on and so forth. So for our case, for our purposes, what we're going to do is we're going to create an event type called user, and later on we're going to create one that's called company, and we're going to attach that listener to that type. Okay, and the user corresponds to this namespace here. which will be the endpoint that we're handling. So EV manager, we're going to call attach. The type is user, and that's my listener. Okay, so I just attached this class in the events manager, and whenever I fire a user event, it's going to go into the listener and check if that event corresponds to something that is callable in this class. So the type is my major grouping, so this listener will handle the user events, whatever event executes or happens in the user area, whether it's this get, put, post, delete, or whatever. And then the name of the event that I will use to call will be the name of a method inside the listener class. All right. So to make it more clear, we have the events manager, we have it shared, we're having the logger class, we create a new listener, and we're attaching a listener to the type user. All right. Now, if we go to our user implementation here, and we go to the handlers, let's go to the post handler, which is where we have this to do. And more importantly, how are we going to call it if we don't have the events manager? Oh, well, we need to go here and then inject the manager over there. All right. So we have work to do with regards to the DI container first, and then we're going to come back to the implementation and the handlers. So this user put becomes hold on a sec, where do I have my notes here? Give me just a sec. It's the wrong file. This one needs let's put it before the registry. It's not security. Alright, that's my events manager. Actually, let me change this to alright. So that's my my guy over there. Abstract user put post handler. Alright. So we need to go to our user definitions. It's these handlers here. Alright, so this guy, which is this one. So what is my change? Let's see, is it in that class? It's in, yep, there you go. I already have it here above the repository. It's the magic of video editing. Alright, so I have the events manager over here. It's after the repository. This is the get service put post, which corresponds to these two, the post handler and the put handler. So excellent. Our DI container now knows about the events manager, and it will inject it in those two handlers. Right? So it's coming in here. Let's go back to the child class, which is the post handler. And here is what we need to do. Here's the area where we need to put our implementation. We do have the events manager available. So how are we going to call it? Okay, so it's very easy. We're going to leave the return payload. We're going to get rid of this to do finally. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say this. Let me put it on new line, events manager. and then we're going to call the fire of the events manager. And what the fire needs is an event type, a source object, and any data that we might have, right? So let me just close this there. So first and foremost, it's gonna be our event type. I can put user here, and that will be this one here, right? So it's gonna call the listener, but I don't want the whole listener to run or anything like that. I want a specific method from the listener. And if you recall, we called the method PDOError, right? So what this is going to do is it will match this event type. Okay, so user, and if I put a colon and put PDOError, then that one will execute the PDOError method of the DB error listener, because the DB error listener class is attached to the user event. So this is how you do it. You have your type, whatever you defined. We defined user arbitrarily as something that would run in the user area here in the namespace, and I want to run the PDO error. So the next thing that we need to pass is the source, and then we're going to pass this. Okay, so what is the source? Where did this event occur? And this is the source. And then we're going to pass the data. Well, what we wanted was the get message from the exception. So ex get message, and there you go. So this this here, what it will do is whenever there is a PDO exception, if there is one, it would call the events manager and will fire an event there. The event would be of type user, and then it will go and match whether there is a user type. There is a type of name user, and then if it does exist, we have a class attached to it. The other part after the what is this, double colon, will be the name of the method. So it will go and check if there is a PDO error method inside my DB listener, which is the object that I attached to the event type user. And then once that is done, it will call it, and in that method, it will pass this, the source, and the message. If you look at the DB error listener, our what we get here is the event and the handler, right? So this one actually accepts the event that happened, which encapsulates all the data that we sent from the other method, as well as the source for this particular method, and it manages to send everything over there. So in here, all we have to do is just send this and the get message, and the fire event, the fire method, would actually do its magic, and it will encapsulate everything the way we want to, and it will be sent forward. Now, this piece of code exists in the user post handler. Well, all we can do is just go down here and just paste it. There you go. It's the same thing. So this event will actually work on both, because we're passing the source. It would actually say that this is the user put handler instead of the user post handler. So it would allow us to distinguish where the data is coming from. Okay, so that's how we attach events to places in our application and based on the event type. One extra thing that I didn't clarify is how does it know, how does this fire event know what to pass to the PDO error? Well, that's simple. When you're calling fire, you're sending the event type, what needs to be called, you're sending the source, and you're sending the data. This is the data, the EX get message. Now this gets wrapped in an event, right? And the event object is then passed to this method as well as the source. And optionally, it's the data as well. So in my DB error listener, all I need to do is I need to have an event which will give me information. In our case, it will be the data, the data that I will get back. And in our case, it will be this EX get message from here. And then the second part, the second parameter is the this. It's this one here. In our case, because we know that this is called from a user post handler or a user put handler, I've added a handler interface here, because that's what you're passing. It's objects that correspond with that follow this interface, and as such, I can do the get class of the handler and get the name of the class, and then I do the get data for the event, and then I just log everything with a logger. Right? I hope that clarifies how these two parameters came to be. So the final thing that we have to do is add a companies table. So we're assuming that we have the users table in our database is the one that is users of the API, the ones that will have their tokens, the credentials, and they will be able to use the API. So now we're coming to the actual data that the API can produce back. So we assume that we have a bunch of companies, just a table. We can expand that later to invoices or individuals and so on and so forth. But if we do the companies part first, it's going to be very easy for you guys to replicate it and just expand it to the way you want it. Now, in order for us to do that, if you recall, we use Sphinx for our database management. So what we're gonna do is here we're gonna do Sphinx status. We have two migrations, great. So Sphinx create, add companies table. All right, and under resources, database migrations, we're gonna see this, and let me copy and paste all the code, and I'll explain why and what I've done. All right, so this is my migration. For starters, we're using up and down. I mentioned this before. I prefer to use up and down instead of the change. Sphinx offers this change method where it will do one action and then it will revert the whole action back. I prefer to do things a little bit manually. It doesn't matter how you want it. It's up to you. So the down part will be to just delete the companies table. The up part is to create the companies table, right? So we're going to call it CO companies, CO from core. That's the prefix that I'm using, and COM will be the prefix for the company table. that gives you uniqueness in the whole database. So what I'm going to do in terms of names, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a company ID, com ID, a name, 128 characters, phone, email, again 128, website, I'm going to have address line 1, 2, city, state or province, zip code, country, and then of course I'm going to have created date, created user ID, updated date, and updated user ID. And with that, I'm going to add different indexes. I want an index on the name, one on the email, one on the city, one on the state province, one on the country, and I name them I underscore name. So that's my migration. All I have to do is run status, and you can see there's one migration that has not run, and then things migrate. There we go. And if we go to our database here and we refresh a little bit, we got 3 tables, and there's my companies table with whatever I've defined. Okay. Now, I'm not going to bore you with adding everything and anything in this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video for a bit, copy the files over, and then we're going to go through it very quickly so that you guys can see how easy this was done. Okay. The wonders of video editing. I have copied the relevant parts from my testing environment and my notes all the way to this application just to save time. So what we have to do is we have to create endpoints for companies. And as you followed this tutorial series, you will note that we start with routes, we create a service, then we have different DTOs to transfer data back and forth. We invoke different commands, and then in the end we have the handlers that handle all the information that is necessary to go back and forth. But we already have the migration, so our database is prepared. So what I have done is let's start with the routes. I've gone into the enums and HTTP, and we have here the routes enum. And as you can see here, I added 5 new routes. Arbitrarily, I chose these numbers. We don't use these numbers, but it's for the future. Again, company delete, get many, post, put. This is the main difference between the other endpoint of the users. In this instance, we're going to need to have a means to get more companies, so not only one, with different criteria and so on and so forth. The methods, as you can see, company post, user post, we'll use the post, delete, get, put. Nothing for the middleware. The endpoint will be company. This is the mapping to the different services, these 5 here. And as a suffix, we usually have nothing, but in this case, similar to the auth one, where we have auth/login, auth/logout, auth/refresh. In this case, what we're going to have is get/all, which will give us the many companies. So that's our initial setup here. For the infrastructure part, we have various things here. Very briefly go through them. We're gonna go through the explaining of the handlers, and we're gonna come back to this. So company has a mapping of the fields in the database. This is our DTO. Company criteria, we're going to leave it for the moment. Just for your information, is just pretty much everything, but it also has a page and per page, and I'll explain what that is. Company input, again, whatever is being supplied by the user. Company mapper is the same as the user one. It has DB. It has domain, but also it has domain rows, which we'll come back to that in a minute. This relates to the get many. Company repository, simple stuff. Extends the abstract repository, so we have access to the delete and delete by ID, as well as insert and update. We now have the find by ID, find one by. These are two methods that we have seen in the users, but we also have the find one as well. And this is the one that gets multiple records. A sanitizer is very easy. The enumeration just checks all these fields, and it actually tells the sanitizer or filter, whatever you want to call it, that these ones, the default will be 0, for this one will be 1, and the per page will be 10, everything else will be null. The integer fields are going to be getting an ABS int, the email is going to get the email, and everything else will get strip tags. And again, validators, the enumeration, we want everything to be present, so name and email. An email has to validate as an email. On the update, it's the same thing. So these are our validators, and of course we create some company types. These are for PHP Stan to help us with our static analysis. So that's pretty much the infrastructure for companies, and I'm gonna come back to this one because we have this company collection that we need to see. So let me shrink these three because we're gonna come back to the mapper and the company collection. On the application side of things, we have our services. Very simple stuff. We've done this with the users. The delete just calls the facade again. The get many, get service, put post, and then we have our commands. Of course, our command factory to create the different command objects. The delete command, for instance, just accepts only the ID. The get command again accepts the ID. Post accepts more than that. Same thing as put. And the get many accepts pretty much everything that the post or put accepts, but also has two more properties, the page and per page. And the reason being is that when we are asking for many records, we certainly do not want to send the whole database in one go. We want to send it paginated. So the page and per page would allow us to send chunks of data back to the caller. Our facade, again, similar to what we have done with the users. It takes care, it uses the command bus and it figures out exactly which handler to call, and then everything gets routed and gets returned back to the caller. So far nothing has changed. It's pretty much the same stuff that we have done with the users. And apologies for the dog barking in the background. All right, so we're going to go through the get and the post very quickly, and then we're going to concentrate on the get many so that you guys can see the whole scenario. And I'm also going to close with how the data is sent back and how we made a small change to our framework in order to keep everything as layered as possible. All right, so the framework meaning this application, didn't mean Phalcon framework. So for the company get handler, what we're doing is we're dogs. All right, so what we're doing is simple stuff. We're getting our command, we're getting the ID, we're finding the ID, and then we're sending the payload back. For the moment, ignore this transformer get. I'm going to get back to this at the end of this as I'm finishing the company's discussion. But for now, is we're finding the company by ID, and if we're okay, we have everything, we're just sending the payload back. Okay, very easy, simple stuff. For the company post handler, Again, similar to the users, we're doing our validations at the top. We're using the mapper to change the command to a database object. We're doing some pre-insert checks, and then we insert the company. Uh, this is our new guy over here, where we're throwing an event to capture anything that might have happened with the PDO. And again, checking again the company, we're finding by ID the company again, just to be able to return it back, and then we're sending the payload back again, similar to the put handler. Okay, so here comes the get many. Right, as you can see, the get many is not a big method here, the handler itself. We have certain problems that we need to address with the get many. For starters, how does a user supply data, and what do we do with that data in terms of parsing it, processing it, and then changing it to a meaningful way that would allow us to perform the query. To give you an example, in the case of the get, the user, the one that consumes our API, the client if you like, sends us an ID, and we know to match this ID with the ID of the user. So that's our criteria. When you're doing a find many users, you need to give the users the clients, the ones that are consuming your API. You need to give them flexibility in terms of what they can send you and what options they have. So for instance, a very elaborate model would be to send to change the get many to be a post, for argument's sake, and then in that post you can have a JSON string, which will end up in an array, and then in there you could have elements in that array, which will have three things. First of all, it will have the field name, then it will have an operator, and then it will have the value. So for argument's sake, you could have a field name of com name or company name, and then you could have the operator like, and then you can have Susan. So that could be a contract that we have with the outside world, and then once we get that data, of course we're going to filter it. But once we get that data, we can go to our database and say, all right, well, this guy wants all company names that sound like Susan or like Susan, then the percent, whatever the syntax of SQL is. Equally, we can have other operators such as greater than, which is good for dates. We can have less than, we can have between, and so on and so forth. Not only equality. In this example, in this application, we're only using equality, but nothing stops you from expanding this model or this application for that matter, and offering more options for the user. You might not have to put it in a post. You might take advantage of get. You might find a different way of receiving structured data that will tell you what the query is, because it's really beneficial for your clients to be able to search for, let's say, companies that exist in Arizona or exist in England or whatever, anything that you can search or you allow them to search with. So again, this is just an equality thing, so whatever people send is where equals, so it will combine all those into one where equals statement. The only thing that we have added in this case is, as I mentioned, the page and per page, and those are two new properties that are coming from the command object. Of course, they come from the input, and they default to 1, so first page, and 10 records at a time. In your application, you could certainly increase that number, maybe 100 records at a time, 1,000 records at a time, or whatever, but certainly not all the records, because you definitely need to restrict that. So one thing that we need to do is we need to go to our repository and find, and that's not the correct one. We need to go to the company repository. There we go. And the find is very simple. I mean, we haven't done anything crazy here. We're just creating a new select statement. We're issuing the from. If you ignore this for a moment, because this is the criteria, the search parameters, all we're doing is we're just saying this is your page, this is a per page. Remember, this will default to 1 and 10, and then fetch all, and then use the mapper to create the domain rows, right? So that's pretty much the whole database representation. Thus far, we have been returning company objects. So this one guy here, these DTOs. But now we need to return many of those. So what we have done here, or I have done here, is I create a company collection. All right, and a collection will be a collection of these objects. So company collection is a collection of companies. I mean, this is a little bit of an anticlimactic class. It's just empty, but I split it into an abstract collection so that we can extend this later with other objects that we want. So the abstract collection, what it does is it implements iterator aggregate and countable, and it has an internal array of items. We can use the add to add the object, so I will be able to add a company object here, and I will make sure that the ID is my my key. I can have the count. Actually, let me make this a little prettier. There we go. And toArray will return all the items, and the get iterator, I chose to use the generator because I wanted to keep the memory as low as possible. If you're using the yield in a generator, the memory is not spiking. It kind of like remains constant because the whole result set is not loaded into memory. It just loads one per time. So this is extremely useful if you have a really big data set that you want to send back. Clearly you can change this to whatever you want, but this is the approach that I took, and that was my rationale for using this. So this is going to be helping us create a collection of these objects. Okay, so if we go back to our repository here, we've gotten the results with the fetch all, and now in the mapper we need to have a look at the domain rows, right? So we said that we're going to see that. So all these results are being dumped in there. This is an array of results. So the company mapper, what it does is it utilizes the collection. Alright, so it creates a new collection on its own, and then iterates through the rows and starts adding each of these elements into it. But to add it, it has to use again the mapper to make it domain objects. So the domain object, if you recall, is this one here, where it receives a database row and it returns a company DTO. So we're going to end up here. The return will be a whole collection object, company collection object, which we can then pass further down the line after the database operation is completed. So all right, we've done all these guys, and then we've done the mapper. Okay, abstract collection, company repository, interface, and all that. So this particular get many, what it does is once it goes to the repository and hits find, find will get the results from the database. It will send them to the data mapper, and the data mapper will return a collection. So this variable here is going to be a company collection, and that's what we're going to return back. Before I talk about the transformer, let me quickly talk about the criteria. I talked about it a little bit with regards to what parameters you should send, but this is how we've done the criteria. I created a new class called company criteria. Again, it's a small DTO. that receives all this data from the input. And of course, these are the two additional things that we put in there. You can certainly extend this as to how you want it. So this takes a command object, because by the time this thing gets invoked, we only have commands in our application. This comes to the handler level. It's not to the service level. Service level, you can take advantage of the input that has been sent, but by the time you get to the handlers, you're using commands. Okay, and what this from DTO does is it creates a new object of itself. So it takes the whole command, it pretty much puts it into perspective into the properties here, and then it does certain checks here. The check limit, it checks whether the page is a positive number. Otherwise, it will use 1, and the per page will use 10. This is what this check limit does. And then we have an additional to array here, which translates the command to database fields. This, of course, could have been in a mapper, but I left it here. It's opportunities to refactor later. The main difference between a mapper and this is that this one runs the array filter at the end, which means that if any field for whatever reason was left null, it will be stripped out. So one will keep only the fields that are necessary for the find operation. And again, this is just a where equals, so whatever is passed into the country or the city, it's going to be where city equals blah 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 and country equals blah blah blah. So there's no ors, there's no betweens, there's nothing like that. It's just a simple where clause with where this equals that. Again, opportunities for expansion on this and refactoring and enhancements. So this is our criteria DTO object, and if we go back to the repository, we're coming to this area here. You're looking at the criteria, and we're hitting the array. Remember, this one will call array filter, which will get rid of everything that's null out of there. And if it's not empty, then it issues the where equals on the select, and then it does whatever it needs to do. Again, plenty of refactoring and enhancement opportunities here according to the needs of your application. Okay. All right. Now we've added this company and we made sure that we have all our handlers and so on and so forth. I'm gonna close with an issue that has been bugging me, but I've not touched it until now, and this is the return data. Whatever we return, this one primarily is work that primarily happens in the handlers. All right, so you notice this transformer class, right? This is something that I added in this video. All right, and what I did was I looked at all the handlers and I made sure that everything returned is correct. So for instance, here in the deleted, let me go to the user. It's probably an easier thing to see. So delete handler, it's here because it has the git blog. All right, my delete handler was like this. All right, this is what we have seen, and we had record deleted successfully, blah blah blah, user ID. Okay, but this particular thing was being repeated again in the company, and it was also repeated in a different form in the auth parts, because the auth parts do send a specific payload back. One sends the 2 tokens, the other one sends a little bit of a different payload, and so on and so forth. And of course, with the introduction of the collection, let me just go to the get and do this. Hold on, let me keep this there. Yeah, it's not gonna work anyway. All right, I'll rewrite it. Sorry. So this is what we had. So in the payload success, send an array of user ID and user to array. That's how we were sending one user back. Okay. Well, we were doing the same thing for the post. When somebody was posting data in after the user was inserted, we would pick the user up, and then we'll send exactly the same payload, exactly the same line 55 over there. And then we'll do the same thing with update and so on and so forth. Well, once we put the companies in there, we're doing exactly the same thing there too. But we also have the issue of what if now I get many records? Well, I'm going to have to send an array of this with different elements, because the collection will contain, let's say, will contain one company. So I will have to send an array that has company ID, company to array, company ID, company to array, and so on and so forth. All right. Now our collection, if you recall, returns these objects. So that's what it stores. It has the ID as a key, but it stores these objects. So I have to run toArray on every single object that exists in my collection. So that code is responsible for taking a domain object and then transforming it into something that would be sent with a payload to my view layer, or my response layer, my responder. So as I thought about this, I thought about putting that little for each loop, and then transforming the data, especially in the case of the get many. But that seemed dirty in a sense, because I was doing exactly the same thing, and I was increasing the responsibility of the handler. So the handler is not supposed to be manipulating data. If you put that responsibility there, then you're kind of like muddying the water between the responder and the handler. So what I did is, let's see, can I do undo here? Yep. All right, that's fine. Go to the let's do. Okay, I did this. So what I did is I created transformers. And a transformer is a class that receives an object, and then it transforms it to whatever we need to see. Let's do the transformers for the company, which will be the same as the user, and so on and so forth. And then we'll go back to the auth. Okay. So I created this folder here, transformer, and I have one class in here. And in this class, note, I could have created a single transformer for a single action and have it invocable, which is fine. I chose this implementation because the objects injected to the handlers were starting to get a little bit too much, and you will see what I mean when we look at the definitions in the DI container. So I'm gonna leave. Well, I can do this. All right. So for the deleted, right? If you recall, we had record deleted successfully hash user ID. Okay, that's what we had. So now, and note that the transformer is injected here. We're just calling the delete on the transformer with the user ID. What this will do is it will return an array that has exactly this this element. And if I go from the user delete handler to the company delete handler, you're going to see that this line is identical here too, right? And this one actually makes things really interesting because if you notice, this particular piece of code, this invoke, is pretty much identical to this invoke. So there's an opportunity for us to rethink our application and maybe shrink the code even more by reusing some of these components, right? So if you look at it, the only thing that changes is the name of the variable. The code is the same. We're calling delete ID, we're checking the row count, we're calling delete, and then payload and fun. So there's and it's not get a user. No, it's a get a user there, and then get a company. Okay, and yeah, delete, not get. Sorry. I'm gonna go over all these doc blocks and just make sure that everything is fine, and also update the documentation as much as possible for you guys to have a look. But where I was getting at in this is that I do get whatever the repository sends back, and then all I do is this particular payload or whatever comes back, I just send it to the transformer to make it the way I want it to be sent out with the payload. Okay, so in our case, the transformer will return in this case, the transformer will return this record deleted successfully. Okay, well, coming further down, we have a get here, and if you notice, this is a little bit familiar code. We're having an object, and we're getting the ID, and then the object and the toArray. Well, we saw this code in the user, where is it? User get handler here. If I revert this code, we had user ID and user toArray. So now, if we're using the transformer get, we're going to do again the same thing, object ID and object toArray. And very conveniently, if you go to the post, you see again we have a get, and then we go to the put, again we have this get, which means that if ever we want to change the way the data is returned back, we're not going to go to each and every single handler and change it. We're just going to change it in the transformer. Similarly, the company does the same thing, as you can see here, transformer get, and again transformer get here, and of course transformer get there, right? So this is the benefit of having this tiny layer that will transform the data that we want. It becomes very helpful, especially in the case of the get many. So if we have the get many, we're going to get a collection here. If you recall, the find will return a company collection. So what we're doing is we're dumping this company collection in the transformer, and what the transformer will do is it starts a new array, creates a new array. It starts iterating with the for each, and then it goes between key and object, and then it creates an array again of key, and then it calls object to array, and then it returns the result back, right? We could use array map. This is what this little squiggly thing from PHP Storm under the for each denotes. We could definitely use array map to send the data. It will be faster. I'm not sure how fast, because if you recall, our collection object is a generator, so it keeps the memory as low as possible. So I haven't benchmarked this. I just did this as simple as I can and leave room for expansion, so on and so forth. So what we got here was our collection object, and now we want to have an array of that. So we need to call array on every single element of that collection, and then return the results back. So that would allow us to get all the results back with when calling this method here, the success, after we got the results, and then the get many, and the data will come back the way we need it to. Okay. Um, just a quick demonstration on this. I'd like to run a test, and I'm gonna make it fail intentionally so that you guys can see that we do get a lot of results. All right, so in this test handler success, we're gonna create 5 companies. We're gonna hit the get many to get all of them. We're not sending anything in here, and the success, blah blah blah, and we just want to make sure that we have 5 of them. All right, so what I'm gonna do here is after we got everything, I want to put a simple this assert same empty and then data. And this is what's gonna make it fail, of course. And we have PHP units, application company handler. Alright, so if I run this, remember, intentionally I'm just saying, oh, I expect the data to be empty. This is just so that I show you what comes back. And you note that we have 5 records in the database. It brings back each of them. This is my key, and this is the toArray that runs on it. Of course, we're running Faker, so this is just various data. And then again, this one, and then this one, and then this one, and this one. Alright, so we're getting the data formatted exactly the way we want to. Okay, I'll probably add one more test here, or one more iteration, so that I can call it with parameters, because right now I'm just saying get many with nothing. I can probably call it with a different name or something, equals ABC, whatever, and then get the results that I expect. Okay, so I'll do that offline and push the everything. By the time this video is uploaded, I will have pushed everything on GitHub, and then also I'll work on the documentation. Final thing to demonstrate is the transformer in the auth. So if I go infrastructure, auth handler. So in the handler now I have the auth transformer being injected, and it's located here in the auth DTO. You will notice that I've moved the transformation here, the authenticate and so on and so forth. So in the login, my code used to be like this. I would construct the results here, and then we'll send them to the payload. What I've done is I've taken all these results, this array, and I moved it to the auth transformer. Now I'm passing the domain user and the tokens, and it creates this payload. Similarly, the logout returns authenticated equals false, and the refresh returns these 2 tokens. Again, it's this that was replaced and this that was replaced. Again, this brings a lot of flexibility because we're um, we're creating payloads that go back to the client, whoever called it, and we have one spot where we can just change everything. In the case of the companies and users, that transformer serves both, but this one is a little bit of a special case as far as the auth is concerned. It didn't. It was, as they call a bad smell when in the login here I was actually creating an element that would be used in the view, so to speak. So I had it in the handler that didn't sit well. So that's why we did this change. And the final part is just a quick show of what we did in the container. The auth definitions here, we added the transformer, and if you scroll down here, you're gonna see the transformer is injected here in the login handler, and as well as here in the logout and refresh handler. Equally, we have here the transformer, the main transformer. That one was the auth transformer. The main transformer here as a class, and for both the company definitions and the auth definitions, if we go down to the handlers, it is, where is it? There it is. It gets injected like that. Okay, on these handlers, and of course the same thing with the get service post put. It gets injected here, and this is what I was mentioning, that we're getting a hell of a lot of arguments into the company get and the company put and posts. So these are all quite a few dependencies. We might have to refactor this one as well. For the users, again, the same thing. If I scroll down, you're going to see the transformer here and the additional stuff here as well. Again, this one is a little bit heavy on how many things are injected. So yeah, that's the transformers. And with that, I'd like to thank everybody for sticking as long or as little as you could with me and creating this application. I really hope that I've given a little bit of insight on how one could deal with the application. This one did start initially as a Phalcon v6, but it ended up as how you can build an application as well. I apologize, I didn't mean to be patronizing, but this is just another application that you could have as a sample. And if you feel that it adds value to you or your future projects, by all means, take it, make it your own, share it with your friends, or if there's something that you like, issue a pull request. We can definitely talk about it. You can find us on Discord and GitHub. We post kind of reasonably okay in social media, but other than that, hope to see you online. Thank you so much, and take care, everybody.